What's up, good people of the world? Welcome to my Sibelius 7 and 8 tutorial. I say 7 and 8 because they're both pretty much the exact same programs. 8 has a few useful extra features, but the aesthetics and the interface is pretty much identical. So this should be relevant whether or not you're using 7 or 8. Although I will say that I am using 8 in this video, but I just got 8 recently. I've been using 7 for a long time before that. So this video is going to have a little bit different format from other Sibelius tutorials. One, I'm going to try and give you information that's not really common. I'm going to try to give you, I'm going to try to give you keyboard shortcuts. I'm going to try to show you how to notate some things that a lot of people want to be able to notate, but it's a little confusing to figure out. As well as just some tips and tricks for a faster workflow, because I'm all about efficiency. Excuse me. So. And the format of this is I'm going to basically just go through and sort of notate things, and then as I notate them and as I use features, then I'll bring things up. I'm not going to sort of systematically go through every button on the ribbon, which I think is not it doesn't help you remember the information, and it's just boring to watch. So I'm just going to kind of get into it. So before we get started, my equipment is just a Apple keyboard with a numerical keypad, and the numerical keypad is really important, but we'll get to that in a second. And then I just have a mouse, a normal mouse. I usually use a Apple Magic Mouse. I let someone borrow mine, so right now I'm using a normal mouse. But the thing I like about the Magic Mouse is that the touch screen allows you to sort of easily navigate around a big full score. Rollerball mouses are also really nice because of the inertia, allows you to get to places really quickly. And then I use a MIDI keyboard. In this case, I use an Alesis Q25. I don't know if you can see that. It's just a 25 key keyboard. You can also get like a Nano key or an LPK25, which are really small. And they're very useful because you can just stick them in your backpack and go notate on a laptop, downtown or somewhere. So first, let's just go ahead and figure out how to input some notes. Okay, so this keypad over here is going to be your best friend. Okay, and it directly corresponds to the numerical keypad that you have. And again, if you don't have a numerical keypad on and you don't want to buy a new keyboard with a numerical keypad, you can always just get a Bluetooth numerical keypad for $20-30 on the side, and and sometimes it's even more useful because then you can put it to the left of your keyboard and then you can input notes with your right hand, and you sort of got that. But I've gotten used to hand crossing, so that's kind of how I do it. Okay, so if you are in Sibelius and you're like, where's the keypad? I can't find the keypad. Okay, well, any window that you need to find is located here, right? So we go to the View tab on the ribbon, okay, and then we go over to Panels over here, right? And then under here we can see checkboxes for Mixer, Navigator, Transport, all these nice windows. But we can click on the keypad here, and that's where we can find it. Oh, and just to clarify, this is called the ribbon. Okay, all these selections right here, you basically have categories, and then underneath the categories you have a bunch of features. Whenever you're looking up other Sibelius tutorials, you guys have probably figured this out by now. They call it the ribbon. Okay, so whenever I say on the ribbon, that's what I'm talking about. Okay, let's go ahead and input notes. Okay, so first thing, what a lot of people tend to do for note input, I've noticed, which I don't understand because it's very, very slow, is to hit the N key, right, and then just click in notes like this. Okay, I don't think that's a good way to go, personally, just because it's not fast. You could also do, note values like this, just pressing the letter names on the keyboard like A, C, D, and it'll just go to the nearest octave. But again, it makes it cumbersome without a MIDI keyboard, because if I wanted to do, something like A, C, D, and then I want to do another D an octave down, then I have to move it down afterwards. So it just adds extra steps in the process. The quickest way of notating, I would argue, is just by using the numerical keypad in conjunction with the MIDI keyboard. It's just very, very fast. Okay, so so let's enter somewhere over the rainbow or something, right? So I basically just select the rest of the measure that I'm going to enter notes in, and then I change the value on the numerical keypad to whatever it needs to be. So in this case, it's going to be a half note, right? So then I just basically play in notes, right? Right, and then and I just change the value as I go along, and then when I'm done, I'm gonna click this little cancel, stop, select none button over here, and that's gonna turn my cursor back out of note entry mode. Okay, and also the N button on the keyboard does that. So if you're in note entry mode and you wanna basically cancel it out, just hit the N button. Okay, so you can see we notated that really quickly, right? So if using this feature. right, you can just enter notes way faster than any other way. So I would highly recommend you get used to using the keypad in conjunction with a MIDI keyboard. Okay, so now let's go ahead and take some let's add some articulations to this. Okay, so some of the most common articulations we can add is, of course, you know, slurs, staccato, marcato. So slur is S. That's the shortcut for that. You just literally hit the S key, you click on a note, hit the S key. And the nice thing about Sibelius is that it has a little spacebar feature where you press the S button, it puts out a slur, and then you can hit the spacebar, and then every time you hit the spacebar, it will extend the slur to the next note, and it automatically shapes it to be a fairly aesthetically pleasing shape, which is very nice, especially if you have like high notes or like long range shifts, and you don't have to, like, you know, mess with the slur. It makes it look pretty decent off the bat. Now, of course, if you have a really long phrase and you want to slur all of that, it's usually more useful to just select all of it and then hit the S key, and it'll do the slur over all of it. But just to let you know, for you beginners to the program, there are two modes of selection. There's blue selection and there's purple selection. So blue is just selecting what's inside of the measure, the contents of the measure, and editing that, whereas purple is selecting the measure itself. So if you just click on a measure without hitting any other button on the keyboard, you're selecting the contents of the measure. So if I clicked on this measure and just hit the delete key, it's going to delete what's inside the measure. But if I hold down the command key and then I delete what's in the measure, okay, it's going to delete the measure itself. So it's important to distinguish those different things. And if you guys have ever used, you know, if you're decent at computers, you'll know that you can hold down the shift key and you can select multiple things at once. Or if you hold down the command key, which, by the way, if you're on Windows, command just translates to control. It's the same thing. If you hold down the command key, you can select multiple staves at once, which will, if you get to like a full orchestral score and you want to select the flute and the first violins, command, and then it'll select just those two rather than everything in between. Okay. So we'll go ahead and add slurs. Now we can add other, articulations, like if we go on the keypad, for example, we can see that we can add, like tenutos or, marcato markings. Again, just get used to all those. You don't have to look at the keypad. It's just all automatic, and it makes things really, really quick. Okay. So that's how we do that. Let's go ahead and add. We'll add some hairpins. Okay, so hairpins are crescendos and decrescendos. The shortcut for that is H. Okay, so H is a crescendo, and then Shift H is a decrescendo. Okay, so if you want to do a crescendo, just hit H, select the measure, hit H, select another measure, hit Shift H, and then it does that, right? And again, it automatically spaces them fairly decently, but there are handles on every object. We can select crescendos and make them as big or as small as we want them to be. Okay. Only slurs work with the spacebar thing. So if you're doing a crescendo, you need to select using shift. You need to select the exact amount of notes that you want to have the crescendo over, in order for it to play it back properly. Because a lot of these are dynamic. No pun intended. They're dynamic symbols and text entries, which is why it's really important that you use the correct fonts for everything, because if you want it to play back properly in your score, it has to know that you're entering dynamics or that you're doing a hairpin or those types of things. That's the one not super nice thing about Sibelius, but honestly there's really not another notation program that's better, except maybe Dorico, is the fact that once you get into like really advanced notations and it has all these symbols in there, it's not necessarily going to play them back, and you sort of have to make a different version of the file for playback, which is usually what I do when I upload pieces to my SoundCloud. Like, for example, crescendo from niente. If we go to notations and then go over to these lines box right here, and we like scroll down to like crescendo from niente, right here, crescendo from silence. It's just functioning like a normal crescendo. It's not going to actually come from silence. So that's something that you'd have to enter in a dynamic marking and then just do Shift Command H, which is basically going to hide it. So it's there, it's working its magic, it's making it sort of sound like it's coming from nothing, but it's not going to show up in the final score. So, and that's an important feature, Shift Command H. You can hide anything with Shift Command H. And it's still going to function, but it's not going to appear in the final score. Okay. Anyway, so back to Somewhere Over the Rainbow. So let's go ahead and enter some lyrics. So the way you can enter lyrics is Command L. Okay. You just click on the note you want to begin lyrics on, and then you just type in the lyrics. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with basic vocal notation, if you have a word that's like a compound word and you were trying to split it up, you would use a dash. So somewhere is obviously one word, so you would use some dash where. Okay, so that's what we're going to do here, some dash where. And then you sort of click it, and then you either click outside or hit the space bar, and Sibelius will automatically like format everything pretty decently. Okay, so oh, and this isn't actually notated correctly, because like in case you didn't know, lyrics are always below the staff, but if you are writing vocal music, the dynamics appear on top of the staff. Normally they appear on the bottom, but only in vocal music the dynamics appear on top of the staff, and it's so that they don't get in the way of the lyrics. Okay, so just be aware of that. So because I've selected just a basic treble staff and not like a voice, that's why it's doing that. So let's just do solo soprano. Okay, and then we'll take this and put it over here, and you can see that now when I do crescendos and decrescendos, it puts it on the top of the staff rather than the other rather than the bottom of the staff, which is correct. Okay, all right, so let's continue going through and adding lyrics. So somewhere over o-ver the rain blue, and we can do a comma there probably. I don't remember the specific lyrics. Blue birds fly. Okay. Now, the nice thing about Sibelius is the fact that it has this thing called magnetic layout. Okay, so everything is malleable. Now, this, if you're an engraver and you want to fine detail everything down to the golden ratio, this might annoy you a little bit. So, but if you're a composer and you just want to make things look really good as quickly as possible and just get your music written, the magnetic layout is very, very useful. So it can be adjusted by going to layout, as you might have guessed. And then over here, you can see magnetic layout. You can turn it on and off, right? And you can see what happens when you turn it off, right? If normally hairpins and lyrics would just sort of relatively, they would pop down and they would always be in the same position. But magnetic layout takes into account the way that objects interact with each other and prevents collisions from happening, basically, okay? So so that's a good thing most of the time. So making sure that magnetic layout is on, which it usually is by default, we can like select this, you know, right here you can see that rainbow and blue. There's not enough space in between those words. It doesn't look very good, and it's a bit cramped, so we can just click on this note and then just sort of drag it over and extend the spacing in between them, right? And Sibelius is really nice with that. It'll sort of magnetically, or you know, just scoot everything back at equidistant from each other, which is a really, really nice feature. Okay. So now this is a kind of a little tip about lyrics. So because of the fact that English etymologically is it's a conglomeration of a bunch of different languages, right? So we have some Latin roots, some Greek words, some Germanic stuff. So you're gonna get, there are no consistent rules for how you should split up words. So the best way to know whether or not to split up words is by, you can just look it up in the dictionary first of all, see how lyrics are split up. But one of my favorite things is known as the lyric hyphenator. So, and I'll put the link in the description. So the lyric hyphenator is very, very useful. You can just go over here. This is what it looks like, and you can just type in, you know, text like over, and then click hyphenate my text, and it'll show you how you're supposed to hyphenate it, right? So in this case, it's O-ver, not OV-er, right? And if you're notating vocal music, it's not imperative, but it's, you know, it's important that you get the correct hyphenation right. So that's just a tiny little vocal notation. Oh, and if I wanted to like hold this note fly for a long time, okay, what you do is you click on the note, like if you wanted to create a melisma. So if, in case you're unfamiliar, I don't want to get into a whole vocal composition rant, but if you hold down, if you're singing one word over multiple notes, you know, like Gloria, something like that, you know, you use an underscore, and it's really easy to do that with Sibelius. So I just click on the note fly, for example, the word fly, and then I just press the space bar twice, and it's going to automatically add that underscore so that it's clear that we're supposed to sing the word fly over both of these whole notes, okay? So that's what you want to do for that. So for middle of words, use dashes, and for end of words being held, you should use you should use underscores, okay? So now how about dynamics, okay? This is one thing that a lot of people get wrong in Sibelius, surprisingly. All text entry can and should be done with shortcuts, so I'm going to teach you those. So Command E stands for expression text, okay? And that's where you can enter your dynamics, okay? Now, a lot of people tend to enter in dynamics like this, like mezzo piano, right? They just type in MP, but that's not actually the correct font, okay? The basic font that comes from hitting Command E is for when you're writing things like crescendo, right? Or diminuendo, right? Or poco y poco, or things like that. But when you're entering dynamics themselves, you're supposed to hold down the command key and then press the MP or sforzando or fortissimo or whatever you want. That's when it's going to play back regardless, but in order to get the correct font, and in order for those dynamics to be to look like real dynamic markings, you need to make sure you hold down, so you click on the note you want to enter the dynamic, Command E, and then you hold down the command key and then you press in the notes. Also, whenever you're in a dialog text box like this, you can always right click and it'll give you tons of basic options, right? So if I want to do a sforzando or like marcato, or if I want to enter in like advanced linguistic symbols or like sharps and flats, you can do all of that. Okay, so we'll go ahead and enter in, let's see, mezzo piano. Oops, wrong thing. Mezzo piano. Oh, and one other little thing. If you're writing like a hymnal or something, and you want to be able to notate another line of lyrics, you can do Alt Command L, and it'll do another line of lyrics, and you can enter in more lyrics down there. And you can do up to like, I think 6 lines of lyrics. I mean, if you go to text on the ribbon and then you go over to lyrics, you can see it'll allow you to enter in up to 5 lines of lyrics and probably more than that. Anyway, so those are sort of the basic notational things for you to worry about. So and again, Sibelius is very intuitive, in the sense of like, let's see, maybe I want to take this soprano solo and I don't need to write soprano solo every time. So maybe I just want to make it just soprano. So, so I can just click on it and then I backspace to S and you can see it changes them all, right? Or I can just hit the delete key and then we don't have a repeating abbreviation. When in doubt, just mess around and you should be able to figure a lot of these things out. Okay. Anyway, so let's say we want to make a particular rest, happen, or I want to rest at the beginning of a measure, like a dotted quarter rest, and then I enter my note. So I just click on the rest that I want, and then I do like dotted quarter on the keypad, and then I hit this little down here. It's the 0 number on the keypad, and then that basically skips to the next thing. So now I can enter in additional notes with the rest at the beginning. Okay, and this is how you do a pickup note. So I'll show you how to do a pickup. So you can enter in a pickup measure at the beginning when you're creating the score. Under the settings when you're about to create a new score, but the easiest way to do it is just to figure out the exact value that you want. So let's say like, I want a dotted quarter pickup. Okay. So basically what you do is you then, you enter in the notes that you want, and then you select this note and you drag it over to the 8th note. Okay. And then you delete the 8th note rest. Okay, so you just hit the delete key, and remember that just hides it. Okay, if I hit delete again, it's actually going to delete it, but that's just going to hide it, so it's still there functioning and it mathematically makes sense to Sibelius, but it's not going to show up. Okay, and then I just basically select that invisible 8th rest, drag it over to the half rest, right? And then I can delete, and sometimes you got to zoom in with these things. Then I can delete this half rest, and now we essentially have a pickup, right? Which brings me to beaming. Let's say we want all these notes to be beamed together. Okay, well that's on the keypad, right? So let's go ahead and go over to the 3rd page of the keypad. Okay, so we have secondary beams, no beams, middle of beam, start beam, and end beam, right? So we want this to be the start beam, so we can just basically click 7 on the keypad, and it will make at the beginning of a start beam, right? We can also make things like stemlets, which I know a lot of people aren't particularly fond of. So if this was like let's see. If we wanted, this to be split up by a stemlet, we could go to the 2nd page of the keypad and then do the top button, the top middle, which would be the equal sign on the keypad, and it's going to make stemlets. Okay. And sometimes this is useful, well, I won't get into music engraving and notation standards, but that if you want to do that, that's how you do that. It's pretty simple. Okay, which brings me to another point. If we are in like 7/8, for example, and we want to make sure that the notes are beamed properly, so 7/8 can be divided by, it has factors of 2, 2, and 3. So you can go 1 2 1 2 1 2 3, or 1 2 1 2 3 1 2, or 1 2 3 1 2 1 2. So if we have like the Yanni song, right? So we go to time signature, right, under notations, and then we just click on the time signature, and then it's gonna put it into the mouse, okay, which turns the mouse blue, and then we can basically just click on wherever we want the time signature to show up. It's like it puts it in the mouse, and then you can poop it down under the score. But anyway, the point that I was getting at is that if you want things to be beamed correctly, so if we do like Yanni, for example, it's gonna beam right. We're still with the vocal sound. So you can see it's being right, da 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 da, right? But what if we have another song that's dot and da 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 1 2 1 2 1 2 3? Well, we could adjust it manually, right? We could go to the third page of the keypad and we could just do like 1 2 1 2 1 2 3. But the problem is if then I enter it into the next measure, it's just going to restart the beaming again. So how do we change the default beaming for a particular time signature? Easy peasy. We just go to notations, to time signature. Then we go down here to more options. Okay. Once we click on this, we select other. Then we select our time signature. So the numerator is going to be 7. The denominator is going to be 8. Okay, and then we down here to this button and we hit beam and rest group. So you can see it's 3 2 2, but we want to make it 2 2 3. So we just backspace. We do 2 2 3. So we've changed it, and then we hit OK. We hit OK, and again it puts it into the cursor, and then we click on the 7 8. And now when we have when we enter our you can see that the beaming has changed, and now that default beaming for 7/8 is going to be 1 2 1 2 1 2 3, which is what we want. So and you can do that for any, if you have like a piece that's in 4 4, but it's always divided into 3 3 and 2, you could do that as well. Okay, so that's how that is facilitated. Okay, so now. I want to bring up one of my personal favorite features, but we'll get to that in a second. So this transposing score button right here is going to be your best friend. Okay, so if you're writing for a French horn, for example, or a saxophone, or any instrument that is a transposing instrument, and if you're not familiar with that, a transposing instrument is basically just an instrument that when they read a C, or when they read a note that sounds like a certain note in concert pitch, they play a different note. Okay. So for example, a trumpet in B flat major to them is like RC, right? So when they play in B flat, it's like all open keys. It's just like white keys on the piano. It's very easy to play. Okay, but this means that it has to be notated properly. So for example, if I play a note that's like C or something on the trumpet, there we go. I was like, why is there a vocal sound? If we have a note like C on the trumpet, then we turn on transposing score. You can see that it's there D, right? And it's going to make it's going to make the key signature correct, because they're going to be reading a different key signature, right? Because if we write something in C major, because they're in B flat, which is automatically 2 flats, then if we change our piece from the key of B flat major to the key of C major, we're essentially raising 2 accidentals. We're raising the B flat and raising the E flat, and they're in C major essentially when they play in B flat. So that means that they're raising 2 accidentals. So that's why they play in D major. If that's confusing, don't worry about it. You can look it up. Just look up transposing instruments and you'll figure it out. But in any case, the point that I'm getting at here with Sibelius is that Sibelius does this very easily with the transposing score function. So you can write a score in concert pitch and enter in all the notes just like you want them to be, and then you hit the transposing score button and it automatically makes them all correct. Okay. You may or may not want the conductor score in concert pitch versus transpose pitch, but regardless, if you're writing something, let's say like a trumpet, horn, trombone, tuba, if you're writing a piece with multiple instruments, right, and we don't have transposing score on, in any case, if you export the part, the individual part that they're going to see, right, because they're not going to see the full score, they're going to see their own part, it'll automatically transpose it regardless of whether or not you have transposing score selected when you are looking at the full conductor score. Which brings me to another thing. How do you look at the individual part? Well, the W key on the keyboard, just clicking that will open up the instrument's individual part, and then here you can see their part. And the nice thing about this is that aesthetically, anything you adjust in their individual part only affects it in the part, not in the real score. So for example, the moment I take like text, let's see, consordino or something like this. If I move something around and adjust it, it's going to make it orange. Orange means that it's only appearing in the part that way. It's not appearing in the full score. So if we go back to full score, we can see that consordino is still appearing right above this second beat where I placed it. So when you can adjust things aesthetically in the parts, knowing that it's not going to mess with the full score, which is really nice. Okay. Over here you can see that what it does is it consolidates multiple measures. Okay. So this is what you want to see in parts. So for example, if you have a percussionist that is having a triangle hit or a cymbal hit in the context of a large piece of music, and he has like 80 rests that he has to count, you're not going to write out every single rest. You're just going to say, okay, 80 rests of 4/4, and you're going to have like a bunch like right here you can see there you go. That's what it's going to look like, and they know that they're going to have to count 80 rests in 4/4. Okay, and again, it's going to show like show up that way in the parts, but not in the full score. You can also expand this if you want by going over to is it the yeah, it's right over here. So it's under layout, and then you can show multi-rest. So this little button will basically disable or enable that. Okay. But you definitely want that enabled on your parts. Okay. So, and then once you open up a part, it just shows up as another tab, sort of like in a web browser, and then you can go back to the full score, go back to here, and when you exit out of it, it's not going to exit out of the part. You can always just, again, click on the score and hit that key, and it'll take you back in. Which brings me to another tip. What if you want to look at certain instruments at a time? What if I just want to look at the bass instruments and make sure that there's no discrepancy between any of the bass parts? So I select double bass, bassoon, and low piano or something. So I basically just click on the particular instrument that I want to look up. So let's say here we want to look at horn, trombone, and tuba, but not trumpet. Click on horn, hold down the command key, click on trombone, and then click on tuba, and then we're going to do Alt-Command F. Alt-Command F is really nice. It allows us to only look at those things, which is really useful when composing, to focus on particular sections at a time and not get bogged down with the full score. I do this all the time when I'm working on big orchestral scores, okay? And the nice thing is with the little dotted line, it'll show you where you're missing instruments, so you're not going to forget. And then if you want to go back to the original score, you just deselect everything or just click outside the score, then just hit Alt-Command F, and it'll take you back to the view you are originally at, okay? All right, so let's see. Moving through the ribbon. So yeah, in order to add measures, the shortcut for that is going to be Command B. Command B is going to add measures to the end of your score. Okay, and then Shift Command B is going to add measures after the measure you selected. So if I want to add a measure in between this measure and this measure, I select the measure before, and then just do Shift Command B, and it'll add it. Right? It doesn't look like it because it's pushing the staves off way over on the other side of the score. But that's how you do that, okay? So now let's say I have a particular, let's, we'll do this again. Let's say I have, this is kind of a little notational feature. Let's say I have a melody that repeats over and over again, but I want to change the notes, okay? So, for example, like, let's say I have a feature that's like da 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 da, and I have a particular rhythm that I want, right? So I can have like dum 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 bum. So bum bum bum. So I've got a particular articulation setup that I've set up for this little figuration, but I want that to repeat, but I don't want to enter in all the notes over and over again, which would be a pain. What you can do is you can just select the little bit that's going to repeat rhythmically and articulation. Then you just hit the R key on the keyboard. That's going to repeat the thing. It's going to copy it and paste it right next to it. Okay, so we can repeat it, as many times as we want, and then we can select the note where we want to change things. And then basically what we do is Alt Shift N puts you into re-input pitch mode, where you're just literally re-inputting the pitches but nothing else. Because normally if you went and entered in pitches again, it's basically because if you don't have those articulations selected on the keypad, it's not going to repeat exactly like you have it. So if you just want to re-input the pitches but the notes to remain the same, we can do it like that. So You know, so if we enter in something like this, you can see it keeps everything the same, but we're just re-inputting the pitches. I use this all the time. Very, very useful. Especially if you have like a particular, if you're planing, notes or something, if you're planing chords. Or if you have like a melody where it's the harmony underneath has the same rhythm as the melody, but it's just its own part, you can just extrapolate everything down onto the other parts and then just re-input the pitches using the re-input pitch function. Okay, so again, that's Alt-Shift-N. So now this brings up a nice little thing here. So how do we change this enharmonic accidental? So you can see that I've kind of written this in C minor. Okay, that is we're not on transposing chord. I've written it in C minor, so. That should be an E flat, not a D sharp. So how do we adjust this? Well, you just click on a note, and if you want it to enharmonically respell it to its equivalent, so D sharp is the same as E flat, you just hit the enter button on the keyboard, return key on Mac, and then it just changes the enharmonic spelling, which is really nice. This is very useful, especially if you're writing music that changes keys a lot or you don't have a key signature. But obviously, if we had put down the key signature of C minor or E flat major, Sibelius is going to know to make that an E flat and not a D sharp. Those problems only really occur when you don't have a key signature, and you're writing things either atonally or changing keys a lot. And Sibelius has no way of knowing what key you're in, so you can change those things pretty easily. Just by hitting the enter key, which respells. Which brings you to another point. Let's say you are writing in an atonal key and you don't want to have any key signatures. Well, the problem is there are two kinds of C majors. In Sibelius, right? You can see there's C major, there's A minor, and then there's atonal or no key. Okay, so atonal is the one that you're going to want to select, because if I select C major, for example, right, and then I hit transposing score, look what's going to happen. It's going to put the horn in G major and it's going to put the trumpet in D major, but I don't want any. I just want them all to read accidentals, right? I don't want them to be reading a key signature. So you have to make sure that you go and select atonal, okay? That's what that does. When you put it on atonal, then when you go to transposing score, as you can see, it's going to shift all the notes up, but they're still going to be reading accidentals. So if you're writing like a film score and you just want to use no key signature, make sure you choose atonal, not C major or A minor, okay? Nice little feature over here is Ossia staff. It's over here on home. Okay, above and below, it basically just creates another tiny little staff. So you rarely use this. If you want like an alternate easy part for like a easier piece or something, if you're writing for like grade 2 or grade 3 or grade 1 band, you may want to use an Ossia staff for an alternate part or Ossia notes. But I like to do it with melodies. If I have like a melody, I'll write melodies often, and then like I'll get to like the 6th bar, and it's like I could finish it this way or I could finish it this way. So I'll enter in both, and I'll use an Ossia staff to get this is an alternate ending. So that's useful for doing that. Okay. And one last little tip that I wanted to talk about is the filter feature, which is very useful. So again, if I'm entering in, somewhere over the rainbow like this. So if I'm entering in lyrics like this, and let's say that I want to change the font for all these lyrics, right? I've seen people do this. They'll like select every individual word. Which brings me to a piece of advice. If something is really slow, this goes for any program. If you're like, oh, this is so painstaking, stop what you are doing and look up online, because there has to be a faster way of doing it. I can't tell you how many people, students of mine, and even like professional musicians on YouTube, you watch their tutorials or you watch their workflow, and they'll just like sit there and like enter things in or drag things around just because like they don't think that there is a faster way of doing it. There's almost always a faster way of doing it, and it's going to save you hours and hours of time, piled up over the years, hours upon hours of time. If you just, the moment you encounter something where it's like, it's really, really slow, stop what you were doing. Don't assume that there's not an easier way, and see if you can find an easier way. But anyway, I'm off the soapbox now. So somewhere over the rainbow, bluebirds fly. Yeah, okay. So let's say we want to change the font for all my lyrics. So I like to use Lusitana. It's my favorite font. So we're going to go to home, we're going to go to filters, and then basically we can click on any of these buttons, staff text, system text, technique text, hairpins, and it'll select all the text under that category. So we can change that the way that the font and the size and everything, just like that. So let's say we go to lyrics, right? So, and with nothing selected, it says there's nothing selected. Do you want this operation to apply to the whole score? And of course we do. So we hit yes. There, it selected all the text. So now I can go to text, and then I can click on font, and then I can go to Lusitana, and then voila, it's made everything Lusitana. Okay. Which is very, very nice. Okay, so I use that all the time. Very, very useful. And I won't go through all these filters, but they're all very useful. This right here is hide or show, but again, just Shift Command H. Anytime you have something that just functions for playback, and you don't want it to appear in the actual score, you can just do Shift Command H and hide. I'll give you a perfect example. It's like a pickup, something like this. If we want to make a pickup, we just enter in the notes, and then we just basically delete both of these rests, or use Shift Command H, right? And it's gonna hide them, and you can see they're grayed out, so we know that they exist, but they're not gonna appear there in the final score. And then we can just basically use the magnetic layout to drag these notes to make it look like a proper pickup, right? That's how we can do that. Okay, which brings me to two other points. Okay, one is the ability to white out backgrounds of text, as well as disabling magnetic layout. So, for example, if I have like a dynamic, let's say like mezzo piano, and it's just like this note is like really low down, right? And I want to put like the mezzo piano like right on this bar right here, you know what I mean? So I want to make sure it's clear that it's not applying to the old note, but it's applying to the new note. But I don't want to like shift all the bars and lose a bunch of space on an orchestral score. So what we can do is we can click on, and this works for any text. You can click on the dynamic, you right click, right, and then you go to inspector, or just Shift Command I, and then and this will show up as a little dialog box if you're on Sibelius 7. On Sibelius 8, it shows up as a whole window. And then over here you can see, I can't point, but over here you can see there's a little checkbox for erase. And what that's going to do is it's going to erase the background and make it white. So now the second thing that we need to do is, in order to be able to place it on the bar line, so you can see right here, it won't let me do it, right, because of magnetic layout. So I can disable or enable magnetic layout for a particular object very easily. I just go to layout, and then I go to right underneath magnetic layout, and I under object, we can, with the object selected, turn it off. And you can see that here, you can see now that this dynamic marking is clearly only applying to the note that comes after it, and the bar line does not prevent the mezzo piano from being read because we've whited out the background. These are all very useful, very, very, very useful things, okay, that I use all the time, okay. So now, how do we input triplets? Okay, this is pretty easy. So we just go like normal input, right? Then we basically type in the first note of the triplet. You can't do two because then it'll mess up the rhythm. You do the second note, the first note of the triplet, and then you hit Command. You hold down the Command key and you hit whatever number you want. So Command 5 does a septuplet or pentuplet or whatever, and then you do Command 3 and that does a triplet, right? And then you can enter in the rest of the notes. Okay. Sibelius is a little weird with triplets sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't allow you to select like half of a triplet and move it somewhere else, so you generally have to be a little bit careful with that. But in that case, it's pretty easy. And I don't think I told you about ties. Ties are really easy. It's just over here. It's the enter key on the keyboard on the first page of the keypad. You select the first note and then tie it over. And you want to be careful if you're a beginning notator. You want to make sure that you differentiate between slurs and ties because they're different. They look different. Slurs are, basically an articulation marking or a phrasing marking or a legato marking, whereas ties are extending the value of a note by attaching it to the other note. So be aware of that, okay? And there are lots of existing things that can be adjusted on Sibelius. Like, for example, this full score is really useful. If you're doing a full conductor score, it's automatically hidden, but all you gotta do is, again, do Shift Command H, and that's gonna make it appear. So that'll be like, oh, okay, there you go, full score, right? Same thing with pretty much any text. So, for example, if I had like a choir, and it was always soprano, alto, tenor, bass, alto, and I wanted to destroy these reiterating markings to save space because they know that the soprano is always going to be on top, the bass is always going to be on bottom, etc. I can just click on this and just delete all these things, and then once I delete them all, Sibelius will automatically space everything back. Right, very, very useful. Yeah. So let's see, what have I missed? Impotence for spell, record, blah 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 blah. Oh yeah, here's one little useful thing when notating piano music. Okay, which you may find useful. So oftentimes we have like a big giant figuration in piano music. Let's say like you know. So let's say you have a big figuration like this, okay, which brings me to another point, panorama view. This is very useful. If you hit view on the ribbon and then you click on panorama view, it basically just spreads the score out forever. And this is very useful for working. I don't know why I haven't been working in panorama view so far. But and it's also very useful because, as you can see, when I go over to a later part of the score, it always puts the name of the staff and the clef over to the left. So if I'm like working on the middle of like a trumpet and I'm like, wait a second, is this the trumpet? I don't know. It'll always have this over on the left over here, which is very, very useful. But anyway, back to this piano technique. So let's say I want to make all these notes right here, the ones that are too low, to appear on the bottom stave. Okay. But I want them to still belong to the rhythmic grouping of the upper bar. So if you're doing piano notation, this is a really, really common thing. So I just go to cross staff notes under note input. So note input, and then over here, cross staff notes below, right? And then there's a keyboard shortcut, which is a shift command down or shift command up, right? And then you just click on that button, and then as you can see, it puts the notes on the bottom stave. Now all we got to do is we've got to delete these rests so they don't look like they appear, right? Which is basically the same as hiding them. And then I can even select all these notes and then make them all consistent beaming, right? So, you know, if you're notating like a big Chopin run or something like this, that's how you would notate that, right? Very, very easy. You know, I use this technique in my my prelude and fugue in A major, right, where I had like this thing where both hands had to work together. So it was really important that you see that it's just a stream of eighth notes with alternating between right and left hand. You can notate it like that. Okay. So continuing onward, this note value change over here is very useful. So if you write something and you want to like adjust the rhythm, so let's say again if I'm doing like, you know, somewhere over the rainbow, and I realize, you know, maybe at this tempo I don't want it to be half notes, I want it to be quarter notes, right? So we can basically change the rhythmic value. It's a little bit cumbersome in Sibelius because of the way that it handles it, but it's not too terrible. Okay, so so we can just go to note values over here, hit the half button, right? And then, you know, yes, copy all notes. And what it's going to do is going to bring up another Sibelius thing, okay? Another Sibelius window. And then we just can copy it from that and then put it into, and then we can copy it, we can paste it into here, and you can see it'll adjust the rhythm. Why it opens up into another window, I'm not particularly sure. It is a little bit counterintuitive, but it probably was a workaround for some fundamental error in the way that Sibelius handles rhythmic values when they were programming it. So it's not really that big of a deal. And then you have some other useful features over here, like retrograde. You know, we'll turn your pitches around, invert it, we'll turn it upside down, etc. And there are other cool things down here if you write like serialism or atonal music like this. So moving onward to notation. So yeah, you got clefs, key signatures, time signatures, bar lines. It's all pretty self-explanatory. You know, again, when you click on it, there are two ways of entering things in Sibelius. When you click on it, it'll make your mouse blue. It'll put it into the mouse, and then you can just like click on where you want it to be, or you can select like the bar itself, for example, and then click on it, and then it'll put it there. Whichever way, I use both intermittently depending upon what's faster in the context. So yeah, under notations, you know, you can see like there's glissando lines, there's pedals, there's all different kinds of things like that, and a lot of them function individually, different from each other. Okay, so it all depends on context. Some of them are very dynamic. For example, if I put like a glissando line right here, you can see that it's just going to show a line, but once I get to a certain length, it's going to show the glissando text. Right, so there's some really nice things like that in Sibelius. And another final example would be like pedal. So if I'm entering in like, let's say a pedal or something. So if I'm entering in like pedal or something like this, and I wanted it to be pedaled like this and like this, what I can do is I can click on the first note. I do, I do pedal lift, and then it's just like a slur. I hit the space bar to move this pedal over where it needs to be, right? And then I do pedal lift either again or finally if it's going to be taking it off. And then I click on that, and then I just move it over like that. Okay, that's how you facilitate pedaling. But I will get into a little fix here. So if I have something, for example, like let's say we had this figuration like up in the right hand staff, which that brings me to another point. if you select, if you want to change the octave of something, it's just command up or down. And I'll put all these shortcuts in the description, right? This is just me going through, just kind of hodgepodge to hopefully keep it entertaining for you. But command, holding down the command key and moving up or down is going to move things down or up or down the octave. But anyway, the point that I was getting at, if you have like a bunch of eighth notes like this and you want to do pedaling, it's difficult because the pedaling is going to be under the lower grand staff on the piano, so it's not going to want to work properly. So there's a bit of a workaround for this. It's a little bit annoying, but it's not too difficult. So what you're going to want to do is you're basically just going to want to enter in notes. It's a dummy note, right? It's not a note we're actually going to use. On the downbeats of the measures where you want the pedal to be lifted, okay, like this, and then you're going to enter in the pedal. You're going to click on that note and do like, pedal lift, and then, pedal lift finally, just sort of like that, right? And then what's going to happen is you're going to select the pedal, right, and then just do Command X, right, cut it, or Control X if you're on Windows. Then you're going to delete all these measures to make them back to normal, and then you're going to click on the rest and paste it back in. So now it's going to play back properly, and it's going to look right as well. Okay. So if you're trying to figure out how to do pedaling and you're like, how do I do that with the left hand? That's how you do that. Okay. There are more down here, but you can get into that. I don't want to go. I don't want to make this tutorial 3 billion hours long. And down here we have a bunch of symbols. You can always click on this little arrow and it'll show you like all the additional symbols. Like they're and one useful little thing I probably should tell you is like Ossia notes. Anytime you have something that you want to make like look smaller than normal. So for example, let's see. What's a good example here? Like if we have something, yeah, like if we have like an accidental, let's say like like a sharp and parentheses, and I want to put it like above a trill or something, right? So let's say we're trilling on let's say we're trilling on this note, and I want to make sure that they go from F sharp to G sharp and not F sharp to G natural, right? So I enter in the note, I'm going to put down the trill just like I want it, and then I'll put this on top of the trill, but it's too big, right? So I can right click on it, go to the inspector, or again, just shift Command L, and then there's a little checkbox over here that makes it cue sized, right? So that's going to make everything a little bit smaller, which is very, very useful, okay? If we want to make like cue size notes. One example of this would be on a score that I did. Let me see if I can find it here. Hollow man. Hollow man. There we go. This is a score, Peace of Mind. Yeah, here we go. So I'll show you over here. Sometimes for this, because this is a very difficult piece of music to sing, and there's a lot of like chordal harmony and things like that. So you can see that I basically added cue notes to let them know what they're supposed to sing on the next measure, right? Because when you're singing atonally, it's very difficult to know where things are located contextually on page turns, right? Because it's difficult for them to be like, oh, this is a third up, because it's easy to lose track of where you're located on the stave when you're doing a page turn. So you can see for those. I just did, I did little cue notes using the symbols, right? And I just made them small, and then that lets them know. And then with the same note, I just use the lines and basically just let them know that enharmonically that this C flat is a B natural. You wouldn't have to worry about that for instruments, but with singers, again, you as a singer, when you see a note change from a C flat to a B natural and it's going down the stave, you instinctively, especially if you're not, if singing, like I have nothing against singers, I love singers, but if you have only ever sung and you don't have like excellent relative or perfect pitch, it's difficult to instantly know that C flat is the exact same enharmonically as B natural in a sight reading setting. So little things like this, as long as you don't overdo it, can help with those. But anyway, that's enough of that. So that's how you would do that. So it's very useful. Add note names is pretty interesting. It's kind of a side thing if you're doing like I taught piano to like young kids for a long time. So oftentimes I would take a piece when they were just starting out on sight reading. I would transcribe it in Sibelius, and then I would add note names, right? So you can. The really nice thing about that is that it'll add the note names to every single solitary note. So they can get used to where the notes are located by looking at it spatially, but they can also see what the note names are. It's a great way for educational way to segue young pianists or sight readers into reading music notation. Okay. We've got beaming over resonant stemlets over here, but that's just stuff that can be facilitated in the keypad. That's like, for example, if you wanted to have you know, if you wanted to have, you know, both of these notes beamed over the rest, so you get the sense of the triplet, right? You can select all these, then you can do beam over, right? And this button right here on the right is a stemlet, right? And again, some people don't like stemlets, but by selecting that, we can, you know, do that. Although it always depends. I don't want to get into a rabbit trail here, but like I wrote a fanfare for four horns. Let's see, fanfare for four horns. Here we go, Sibelius file. This particular piece utilizes a rhythm in 7/8 that is unequally divided. So it takes the 1 2 3 4, and then rather than taking the 1 2 3 and just doing it da 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 da, it sort of turns it into a mini 6/8 and goes da 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 da. So 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2. So you can see it right here. So you can see I used stemlets, divided stemlets to get that. Right, which is useful for the players, you know, because it really helps them understand. For example, like right here, you know, I want them to go da 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 da. So if I just wrote these 16th notes, they might not instantly be aware that it's the same rhythm, right? Because sometimes I change the rhythm. Sometimes I do da 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 da. It changes throughout the piece. So right here, I let them know with the stemlets that it's the same thing. You're just only playing the first note. So ba 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 ba, right? So you can see it. So that's when this is I think a good example of when you would want to use stemlets, and when it's actually going to make reading easier. So it's something you want to be careful about using. But yeah. In any case, blah blah blah. Okay. So that's stemlets. I'm so ADHD with all this stuff, but you know. I can't bear to just like go through everything one at a time because I feel like you guys get bored and I get bored. So, but anyway, like I said, it's all in the description. So let's see. Grace notes, right? So grace notes. This is how you do that. So you just select a note that you want the grace note to appear before, right? And then you go to the second page of the keypad. It's right here. We have a grace note and then a slashed grace note. Okay, and then we just click on that, and that's going to put me in grace note entry mode. I can enter in any of the grace notes that I want, and then I can select these grace notes. Again, they're not affecting it's going to play them before the bar line. And Sibelius kind of sucks at playing back grace notes. You can adjust playback and stuff. We'll talk about that at another time. And then, but I can select and change the rhythmic value of these grace notes just like any normal notes. And I can also add slurs just like anything else, you know, etc. So it's pretty easy to figure that out. Yeah, we got a buzz zero. That's for like snares and stuff. We got feathered beams. All right, that's all fairly self-explanatory. Up bows, down bows. That's useful for writing bowing. Marcato, staccatissimo, right? Fermatas. This is all pretty self-explanatory. You guys can explore this yourself. Anyway, so what else do I need to point out? Oh yeah, there's another really useful feature that I use all the time. All the time. So if I have, for example, like strings, if I'm doing like first violin, second violins, viola, cello, contrabass, okay, and then I delete, and then I'm doing some part writing, and I want to. If I'm entering in some part writing like this, and I want to extrapolate it onto all the individual strings, right? This is very, very easy, okay? So, first off, let's say I want to make this in, like, open voicing, okay? It's, again, you can move notes up or down an octave by holding on the command key. So I'll select every other note like this, right? And I'll move it, I just select all those interlocking voicings. I held down the command key, I moved it down an octave. Now we have open voicing, which sounds great for strings. So now I can select all this. I can go to note input and then explode, arrange, and reduce. These are your best friend. These are amazing. So I hit explode, and then I do explode onto 4 staves. I hit OK, and then I do use existing staves as destination. It's pretty intelligent about it. It knows I want first, second, viola, and cello. I hit the OK button, and as you can see, it puts it out onto all the individual staves, which is really nice. Now I can just consolidate, you know, I can consolidate all of the rhythmic values, right? And the nice thing is, you know, if I did a dynamic value, which I didn't, you know, if I did like mezzo piano, it would also put the dynamics down on all the individual staves, right? But that's really useful for creating a string thing. And now we can take this cello, right, and then double it down an octave on the contrabass. I can take it, put it on the contrabass, command down an octave, right? I can delete these slurs, and then I can do pizzicato, which reminds me to show you about the other text entry, right? So command E is expression, right? That's how you do crescendos. That's how you do you know, espressivo or mezzo piano or those types of things. But command T is for technique, I believe that's what it stands for. And so T is how you do things like concertino or pizzicato, right? So concertino would be like mute, and pizzicato would just be like pizz. So command T, right? Then P-I-Z-Z dot, right? Now it's going to play back as pizz, right? So that's how we get things like this. Okay. So when I'm doing part writing, you know, I very, very often do things like that all the time, right? I'll do it in closed voicing, then I'll make it open voicing, you know, etc. It's just a really, really quick way of working. And by the same extension, you know, if we had something out like this, I can take this and put it and reduce it back to the first file. And, you know, this is useful if you want to like take something that you've written for the string section and make it so like a celeste or a piano or a harpist can play it. So I hit the reduce button and then just choose the one stave you want it to reduce to, and it does that. Now, if you have different rhythmic values, it's going to use different voices, okay, which can make it look a little bit weird sometimes. So usually what the best thing to do is to just basically select the measures and then change it all to one note value. So in this case we select all of it, then we click on the quarter note, right, and then we just click on the notes that we want to extend the value, and then just hit the R key to poop it over, just like that, right? And then now when we put it back to reduce, it's not going to do any of that weird stuff, right? So just something to be aware of when you're doing these features. When you're using these features. Let's see what else we have. That really honestly covers all of that. We got notations, add note names, blah blah blah. But yeah, you can adjust brackets and stuff, you know, if you want to like group all the brass instruments together. But again, Sibelius seems to be pretty decent with doing this. So let's say you want to add a metronome marking, right? So we use tempo text. We click on this and we type in like allegro, right? But let's say we want to add a metronome marking, right? So we click on the thing again, we do metronome, and then what we do is we click on, you know, metronome mark. We right click again. Right clicking is your best friend if you're trying to find a symbol and you don't know how to type it in the keyboard. Just right click, bada bing, bada bang, and so then we just literally just select quarter note, you know, equals 120, right? And then we can just move this over here, and now we have the tempo text, and then we have the metronome marking with the correct font. And it's going to play back properly because we use the proper font, right? Again, it's imperative that you use the right fonts for these things. Sibelius also has a metric modulation thing, which is really useful right here. So if I wanted to, let's say we're going from like 6/8 to 2/4, and I want to change the dotted quarter into a normal quarter, I can just do that down here. You know, dotted quarter equals normal quarter, and it has all those pre-made, and then you can just put it in, and it'll play it back, right? So it's, you know, pretty straightforward. So yeah, if you're entering in, you know, text, you can do like composer text. This is a kind of a random little tip here, but if you're doing a copyright and you want to figure out what the copyright symbol is on Mac, that's Alt G. If you're on Windows, I can't help you, but if you're on Mac and you want to do the copyright symbol, Alt G, that's what that is. And that, I think it goes for across, whether or not you're in Sibelius. That's just a universal. Alt G is copyright symbol. Now let's talk about chord symbols. Okay, so if I'm writing like a chord progression, like let's say, you know, G minor, E flat, F, right? Typical chord progression. So I just hit Command K on the individual notes of the chord, okay, and then all I have to do is I just type in the chord, basically, and then when I click out, it'll notate it all correctly. So the nice thing about that is that if I type in things like E flat, as long as you're using Command K as the text entry, when you exit out of it, it's gonna make like B look like a flat, right? But you have to know how to type things in. So sometimes people get a little frustrated because they're like, you know, I want to do a C flat 13, right? Oh no, I don't want a C flat 13. I want a C flat 13. So you have to know, you know, okay, the flat 13 is going to be in parentheses, which implies that it's a C major chord flat 13, right? So you gotta kind of know your good chord notation, right? And you can do bass notes, you know, like a C, you know, flat 9 over E. You know, you can do all that, and it should notate it all correctly. You can also do chord diagrams. Pretty much, you know, any good guitarist is going to know how to play these chords. But in any case, if you click on like a chord and then you go over here to chord symbols, we're under the text on the ribbon. And you hit add or remove, okay? Then we do add or remove chord diagram, and it'll add like, oh, G major chord diagram. So again, if you're, you know, creating a chart for like some kids that may not know these chords, or if you have a particularly difficult chord, it's usually most useful for like a jazz chord, or it's like a really weird chord that's not common, and so, you know, you can put a guitar chord diagram in there just for the first one, which may or may not be useful for the guitarist, but I'm not a guitarist, so, you know, you would know. You can also add from notes, but it's easier to just type it in my opinion. That you just like select what you have, and Sibelius will like, you know, analyze it and be like, oh, that's an F major chord, and it's pretty good with it, but I don't know, I generally don't do that. Rehearsal marks. This is really useful, and you should always add rehearsal marks in your score so that people have good and easy places to stop and start. And this is kind of getting into a general notation thing, but it's very important for orchestral scores because remember, like, if you say, let's start on measure 89 as a conductor, what's going to happen if the trumpet player doesn't have anything at measure 89? He's going to be looking at a giant group of 89 rests that are combined together, consolidated, like we just saw. So he's going to be like, what the heck? How do I can't start from 89. Whereas if you say, let's start from letter R, in his part, R is going to split into a new consolidation of rest. So he knows, oh, okay, I can start at R and then I can count 30 rest or whatever. So that's why it's very, very important that you use rehearsal marks in any type of ensemble score that you do. As you might guess, the shortcut for this is Command R, right? And you just click the measure and then Command R. And again, any of this is editable. You can change the font for any of this stuff. So I usually use Lusitano for pretty much everything. But you can also change it to numbers as well. So like if we go to rehearsal marks and then we go down here and click on this button, right, we can change it from like A to Z. You know, it's A1, A2, it'll add a number, or just numbers, or you can do bar numbers, which is what some people do. So right, so where it'll just show the bar number above, right? You know, which might be nice. So that's that. Pretty simple. Over here you can change the numbering of bars. You can change you can put the bar numbers on the bottom or on the top, or take them away, or do a bar number change, which is useful if you want to have multiple movements. Like say you're writing a symphony and you want to have all 4 movements in the same file. You want the bar numbers to start over at 0 on the next movement. You can do that. Pretty easy. Over here at play, we got pretty basic setups. Right here is where you can choose your sound set. So I'm using Note Performer, of course. And then here's the mixer. So this is very, very useful. The most useful thing that you want to be able to know is that this little sound wave level icon here, if you select it a bunch of times, then you'll get this reverb on the top. So if you're writing something in Note Performer and you're mixing it outside, which is usually what I do, I'll export stems into Logic. You can just turn the reverb down all the way. You also have additional effects over here that you can use, but I don't mess with that too much because I do my sampling and you also have the click over here. Sometimes the click shows up in Sibelius 8 and people are like, wait, why is there a metronome? I don't want a metronome. You know, you can turn that down all the way. And sometimes turning it down all the way doesn't actually make it go away entirely. You can still hear it, so you can just hit the mute button. And that'll make it go away entirely. Anyway, there's a live tempo feature where you can hit the button and then it'll go through the score and you hit the space bar in your keyboard, you know, like dun da da dun da da dun boom bum 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 bum, and you just hit the space bar over and over again and sort of like change the rubato of the piece. But I haven't found it to be particularly useful. I find it to be frustrating, and you know, unless you have like the only time I've used it is if I had like a cello rondo, which just didn't sound right. You know, I might do a little bit of live tempo for that, but it's pretty easy. You just select a measure and then you just do record, and then you have to calibrate your keyboard, right? So it plays like a it basically calibrates your keyboard to make sure that there's no latency. and then you can just go through and record, and it'll show it in like a big display above the score. But anyway, I wouldn't worry about that too much, me personally. And you can also adjust performance. You know, like you can if you want to make sure that it plays back properly, you know, you can affect like, you know, unslurred notes are like a certain percentage of the written duration. But if you're using Note Performer, I wouldn't change these too much because Note Performer does its own thing. So for example, if you have like MIDI and you know, and you want like détaché or non-slurred notes to sound like a little bit shorter, so you make it like 80% of note value, so there's a little bit of a break before moving on to the next note to give it a sense of separation. Note Performer does its own thing where it basically reads notes and does its own thing. So if you're using Note Performer, I would recommend not messing with those performance things too much because it's going to conflict with the way that Note Performer works. Last thing that I want to show you, which is just well, I shouldn't say the last thing because there's probably more, but a couple of other useful things. Harp pedaling is under home. It's under the home ribbon, and then it's down underneath plugins. Excuse me. It's useful for let's see, my voice is dying. Well, actually, let's just make a harp. Let's see. So let's see if we had like a scale, like a, you know, Lydian scale or something, and you want to do the harp pedaling. Okay, if you select that particular measure and then you do go and then go to plugins and then go to add harp pedaling, over selected passage diagram, it automatically makes the harp pedaling. I think it did it incorrectly though. But in any case, you know, once you select it, you can just select these symbols and then just like put them away and then like, you know, cut them and paste them, so you can, if it doesn't do it right automatically, you can kind of fix it. But I don't really want to get into harp pedaling. But harps basically have 7 pedals. Okay, D, C, B, E, F, G, A. The way to remember that is, did Columbus bring enough food going to America? And they're diatonic. I don't want to get into orchestration lesson, but just look up harps. And how harps work and harp pedaling, but pedal diagrams are really nice if you have a lot of pedal changes on a harp and you're moving to a new faraway key. Williams uses them all the time. Let's see, is that it? Do we have anything else? Oh yeah, hide empty staves. This is really useful if you're looking at a score like the planets. Let's see. You know, where there are some moments where it's like 2D and there are other moments where it's not 2D. Like, for example, like right, you know, at the beginning of this page right over here, you can see that all the instruments, there are a bunch of things happening at once, so it's filling up the page. And then over here, there's only, you know, some woodwinds and the strings, right? And then, so rather than like just putting it here and then having a bunch of empty staves, right, which would be dumb, it'd be a waste of space, he consolidates them, he hides the empty staves, and then just has 2 systems on one stage, right? On one page, sorry. One stage, that's funny. So you can do that with this, right? You can just let me open up an orchestral score and let's see. We'll do Let's Write Music episode 2. So if I have like a massive score like this, and I just want to hide the empty staves, right? I can do that. So I can do view, I can do panorama, right? And then I can just basically select the entire score. Okay. Boo boo boo, boo boo boo, boo. Bada bang, bada bang. And then I can go over to layout and then do hide empty staves, and you can see that it hides all the empty staves. Okay. And then usually when you do that though, you have to hit the optimize button. Optimize under layout, you know, makes everything, it prevents collisions from happening basically. Which is a very useful thing to do. Whenever you have a bunch of collisions, sometimes you have to adjust it manually, but whenever things look messy, if you usually just deselect everything and hit that optimize button, it'll make everything look fairly decent the way that it is. So that's how you hide empty staves, which is very, very useful. I don't remember calling that lunarium. Wow. That's really quite funny. Let's see. What else is there? Oh, yeah, page breaks. Yeah, we're almost done. Page breaks and then staff size. So over here you can adjust the staff size, right? You usually want it to be about 6.5 or 6 for parts. Usually people make staff sizes for parts too big. And then full score, that just really depends upon the page size, which you can change over here. Over here you can change it from like tabloid for a really large score, and you can of course change the margins and orientation, all that stuff. Pretty self-explanatory. This button adds a title page if you want a separate title page. And then you can adjust here, the staves, systems, all that stuff. It's pretty self-explanatory. System breaks. Okay, so this is very useful. So if I'm let's say if I want, you know, well, let me actually be easier if I just did this. Okay, so let's say I had like a particular harp melody or something, and I wanted to make sure that there are only like 4 bars per stave to make it into clean phrases. I just select the bar where I want the system break to happen, and then I hit the system break button. So you can see it adds a little system break there, right? It's saying that this is where the page is going to end, or the system is going to end, right? And I can do that over here, system breaks, blah blah blah. And then these little handles are here, and you can delete them. And if you ever don't see handles, or if you don't see hidden objects, and you're like, what's happening? Under the View tab, you can show like handles, page margins, layout marks. That's what those are, hidden objects. So if you're ever like, wait, I don't see where I can adjust this, always go over here. And if you want to see what your page looks like in the final score, you can just click this Hide All button, right? And that is going to hide everything, so you kind of know what it's going to look like when it's printed. So, which that brings me to another, I know I'm ADHDing all over the place here, but that brings me to another, if you go to the Sibelius preferences and you go to, where is it? Textures, yeah. It automatically has like a paper texture. You might like that. It bothers the crap out of me. I want it to be like blank white. So you can change that here, right? So you can do, use color, not texture, and then just make the color white or whatever you want. You can also change the background to be like purple or something else, but that doesn't bother me as much as I want the score to be white. Let's see here. And you can do page breaks in the same exact way. So if I click on this bar and I hit the page break button, it's going to put that onto the next page. And when you're engraving and making things look nice, you want to make the page breaks and the system breaks usually have rests, right? So they basically, you'd want to make the page break right where there are a bunch of rests, so like the instrument is not playing for a second, so they have a chance to turn the page. That's a really important thing to do. There's also kind of the reverse. You can make into system or make into page, so I can kind of achieve the same thing by selecting these 4 bars and then hit the button make into system, and it'll do the same thing. And then you can also lock or unlock format. So if you formatted something really nicely and then you just want to double check for errors and you don't want to mess it up, you can just select everything and lock the format. Pretty simple. Appearance, that's pedantic engraving stuff. Parts, don't really need to worry about that. Review is really nice. I use this with my students all the time. You can just select a particular part of the score and you can highlight it, or you can create a comment, right? So if I click right here and then do new comment, I can type it, in blah blah blah, too quiet, too balanced, or whatever. And the nice thing about that is it has down here, it says the instrument and the part of the staff that it's on, and then it shows the measure number automatically. So you can export a log of all these different comments, so they don't have to open up the Sibelius file. They can just look at this text log and see all these comments. Harp, bar 4, blah, blah, blah. Cello, bar 8, blah, blah, blah. It's very useful. Very, very useful for lots of different reasons. Anyway, that is pretty much it, honestly. The only other thing I can think of that I missed talking about, the only 2 things I can think of that I missed talking about is making individual voices, right? But you guys should pretty much know how to do this already. But if I want to make like two different rhythmically things happen at the same time on a single stave, I select, I just enter in 2 notes, and then I select one of the notes, the bottom note, and then I go over here on the keypad to these numbers down here. These are the 4 voices, and I select 2, and now it's going to make an individual voice, right? So the bottom one is green and the top one is blue. And this can cause problems sometimes, because if you enter in like a dynamic for the top line, and then you enter in a second line, and the top line is like pianissimo, it's going to put the green melody on the default Sibelius, which I think is mezzo forte. And you're going to be like, wait, why is that popping out? Like, I just did this in my Let's Write Music series recently. So, you want to make sure that when you enter in a dynamic level, it's a bit annoying, but, Sibelius isn't perfect. You select both and you do both, but then you just click and then do Shift Command Hide, and you just want to hide one of the dynamics, okay? So that, you got the real one appearing and the other one is not appearing. And again, if you don't want these hidden things to bother you, you can just click uncheck, you can just do hide all. Oh yeah, it's because I have it selected. So you can deselect hidden objects so it doesn't bother you, so it's not like there all the time. And you can do that for things like harp glissando. I do that all the time, where I do like the line for the glissando, but Sibelius doesn't play it back right. So I'll make that silent, and then I'll write out a full glissando, and then just hide the real glissando, the notes that I've written out. So it plays back right, but it also looks right. But sometimes, you just want to make 2 different versions of the score, one for playback and one not for playback. But that is pretty much it. The only other thing is here you can adjust the note colors. It default makes notes out of range. Like for example, dark red is like they can play it. you know, but it's hard, and like crimson red is like it's impossible to play. But again, I would recommend you recognize the that you learn these ranges and sort of don't rely on that, but it is useful for beginners. And then for voice colors, it's basically if you click on that, it just always shows the separate voices, and it's kind of nice because it makes the shade a little bit darker, so it's not super blaring like blue and green. But you know, I don't usually use that. And then the last cool thing that you can do is actually color the notes, right? So this is what I did for my first symphony reduction on YouTube, right? I just colored notes, so I can select a note, and then I can just change the color for that particular note head, and it's really cool. You can do this with anything. But I've actually used this in scores before. I've written lots of arrangements for a barbershop group that I sing in, and sometimes the melody shifts all around, and the melody's in the baritones, and there's, you know, sometimes the melody's in the first tenors. So I make sure that the melody is notated in blue notes, so that allows everybody to know really intuitively, without a bunch of micromanaging dynamic levels, that if they're singing the melody, they should let it pop out of the texture, and everybody else, if they're not singing a blue line, you know, colored blue notes, then they should sort of back off. And it's really helped with dynamics and balance. So it's a fun little thing to do. But anyway, if I missed anything else, I think I'll put it in the comments. I hope you enjoyed the format of this. Again, it's less like a formal tutorial and more just me sort of like ranting and rambling about like my workflow, and here are some things that I like to do. And so but I'm gonna try and put all of my favorite shortcuts and things in the description, so you can go ahead and reference that, or like, you know, copy and paste it into your own document for reference. Anyway, that is it. I hope you guys got something out of this. It's a pretty long video, but you know, Sibelius is a pretty extensive program, so yeah, I think that's it. So thank you so much for watching. See you later.